Whoa, we're so close. Hey everyone, it's Casual Friday and there's Stranger Things news, D&D news, and a ton of Critical Role news. All that and more coming up today on the show.
Are you ready to get casual? Grab your favorite adult beverage or combustible plant and join us for our roundtable TTRPG discussion. Oh yeah, it's time for Casual Friday. And now, here are your hosts.
Oh no!
Oh,
Where did Jim go?
we lost the man in charge. Hey everybody, here's something that you don't get to see on your side of the screen. Jim makes an outline every time, and he changes the title. And they're usually bangers and almost never get mentioned on the show. But for instance, today's is People Say She's Crazy. She's got Casual Friday on the soles of her shoes. So if you are a Paul Simon fan, that just made your day. If you're not, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But I was around in the 80s.
Yeah, and if not, you have no idea what you're missing. I mean, Paul Simon, pretty brilliant stuff.
Hey there everyone, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened, but I just did. Yeah, I don't know, I can't share my screen. I don't know what's going on. But hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Casual Friday. I assume these guys said their hellos. I'm Jen, that's Ryan, that's Brad. This is Casual Friday, and I don't know why I can't share my screen.
We're going theater of the mind, baby.
Yeah, apparently. It's behaving very strangely.
Well, while you're figuring that out, I can go ahead and just preface something for the remainder of the show. I have new contact lenses in, not wearing my glasses. So if you see me blinking an obsessive amount during the show, it's because my eyes are still getting used to these new style contacts. So I am constantly trying to focus in and out with these new fangled bifocal contacts.
One, thought we had a guest star. I didn't recognize you, Brad. Two, I'm an old man now. So I, for the first time, just got progressive lenses because I was doing this every time I wanted to look at my phone or whatever. And my wife would no longer allow me to do that in public. So now I have old guy glasses. And they're cool. I almost fell down a couple times, was afraid to drive the first day or two. But yeah, here we are.
Yeah, it takes about 2 days to get used to bifocal glasses. The doc said it takes about 5 days to get used to bifocal contact lenses. So
I didn't even know that was a thing because you can't,
Yeah, so like they like rotate around when you blink as your eyes get used to what part of the lens to look through.
That's wild.
Right, yeah.
So, thanks for vamping, guys, for a couple minutes. I have all of our issues sorted out.
Oh, yeah, I'm not done. Go back. Hold on. We're not done with ophthalmology.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I interrupting?
Casual ophthalmology.
Casual ophthalmology. But hey, we are going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and related to Dungeons and Dragons, there is a new box set coming out from D&D. It's a collab with the Duffer Brothers and Stranger Things. It is Eddie Munson's Hellfire Club Adventures. It's a new box set. The Stranger Things Welcome to the Hellfire Club. Justice Armand talked about this to Entertainment Weekly, saying, I've definitely read this, and I'm very well versed on this. That's why I'm reading it real quick here. Joseph Quint, the Eddie Munson, the guy without the wig, I can never tell him. I have no idea who that guy is without his wig. I don't recognize him at all, but he's in the new Fantastic Four movie.
Went right over my head until this came out.
Yeah, you can tell he's kind of bug-eyed. That's the only way I can tell who he is, but without he's got real short hair. But so you see the box set comes with 4 different adventures, and it comes with some maps as well as a map of Greyhawkins. Get it?
I really like that.
I really like the yellow character sheets. That really takes me back. So it comes with pre-gens for across 3 levels, tokens, all kinds of stuff. Comes with handouts. And on the Mastering Dungeons podcast, they were talking about it, and they said it feels like a Beetle and Grimm's product.
Nice. That's a huge compliment.
Yeah. It's launching in October, where the final season is coming out in November and Christmas, because Netflix is smart to everyone who is service skipping now. You used to get a service for a month, and then you cancel it, and then you get another service for a month. They're wise to that, so that's what they're fewer binge shows. More shows are weekly now to try to get you to subscribe for multiple months in a row. Anyway, that has nothing to do with this. But I don't know. What do you guys think? One other thing before I turn it loose. This is actually, it's an in-world adventure. Like, these 4 adventures are written by Eddie Munson, and this is the second time they've done that with Stranger Things. The first was The Hunt for the Tessel Hydra, which was written by Mike Wheeler in-world in Stranger Things, and I don't know. That's kind of interesting. I don't think they've done any other adventures like this, where it was
They get cutesy with like Lolo's commentary in the book or stuff. They do some stuff like that, but never like full on like a meta.
Right, and like campaign books, but I've never seen. I don't think I've seen this in an adventure. And what do you guys think about this?
I think it looks really cool. I'm interested to get my hands on one, especially now that you just said Mastering Dungeons have seen it firsthand and are saying it feels a lot like a Beetle and Grimm product. That's high praise and makes me want it even more. And I mean, Stranger Things is just cool and like hits all the nostalgia buttons for me because I grew up in the 80s. The only way you could make that even more nostalgic for me is if the character sheets had that purple ink on white paper, like from the old Ditto machines. Especially if it had that Ditto machine smell still in the box, like that would be perfect.
One thing that made me do a double take on this. I mean, okay, hey Hasbro, way to do business good. It seems like they've dropped the ball on a lot of things, but like, yeah, Stranger Things is buttering your bread in a lot of ways. Get on that, cool. On the D&D Beyond thing, when I was doing the deep dive, I was like, do I want to pre-order this thing? That's always my question. Like, do I want to wait to see what other people think, or do I want to shell out money sight unseen? And in a couple places in the copy, they refer to this as a board game. And I don't know if that is some sort of Trojan horse to get the normies to dip their toes in the D&D waters because they like that show on Netflix, or if this is in fact like a degree below like a D&D campaign adventure product. So I'm curious. I also mostly curious what 80s bop are we all going to be rocking out to this Christmas, thanks to Stranger Things. I'm excited for that.
Speaking of the 80s, if you could see it there at the top of the screen, the top story is Malcolm Jamal Warner dies at 54. This week, Malcolm Jamal Warner, Ozzy Osbourne, and Hulk Hogan all passed away this week. There's some 80s for you.
Yeah, for sure. I actually used to live near Hulk Hogan. The home that he had down in, I forget, it's a upscale neighborhood right outside of like Largo, Florida, where I worked by then it was in the 90s, but yeah, I would see him around town. He worked out at the gym that was right next to where I worked. So there's all sorts of nostalgia this week, and of course I grew up on Black Sabbath. The Prince of Darkness is hopefully raising hell.
Does anyone know the price on this box set? I don't think it says it in the.
I looked for it and didn't see it.
It was like 60-ish. I remember expecting it to be like starter set price, although that's a moving target too. I don't know. But I was looking at it like a $30 price point or something, and it's $60 for the ultimate, right? So pre-order the physical, get the PDF or whatever on D&D Beyond. $60 right now.
But if you get just the box, what is that?
If I order the physical, it's $50. So okay. At least through D&D Beyond.
So that's like twice what the old starter sets were. But I think that's comparable to what the new starter set is going to be, right? We just talked about that last week before last. Is it the new starter set in the $50?
50 for the new box set, the new starter set. Yeah. Hey, speaking of things you can do, coming up in 80 minutes from now, the third part of our 4-part Daggerheart miniseries is airing in at 3:30, right? No, 4:30 Eastern. 4:30 Eastern, 80 minutes from now. If you haven't seen the first 2 parts, probably don't want to start with this one. But it's great. I think things get really exciting in this one. The last 2 parts are incredible.
Guys, it's good.
It's good.
It was a good one. I'm like we finished what almost a month ago, and like I think about it. I'm driving around like that was a cool moment.
Yeah, there were some fun moments in there. So moving on, we're continuing the nostalgia kick of this episode. Coming up soon, the Thundercats are going to be in a new TTRPG. And I find it interesting that this it says in here exactly, it says like a 250, somewhere it said, I read that it's like a 250 or 300 page book. Saw that somewhere.
Yeah, 250 sounds right from what I remember when I read it.
There's not a ton of copy, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Let's see what the commercial is." And it's just the Thundercats opening, and I was so much happier. Like nothing could have pleased me more than like, all right, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning in what 1987, and I'm eating some sort of sugary cereal that should have been dessert. Like, yeah, Chitara's hot.
I loved the Thundercats when I was a little kid. I remember this show very much. And then I remember when I was in college, all of our friends, we were drunk on the dorm one night. We were like, let's go to Blockbuster and get Thundercats. Woo! And we did that. We got Blockbuster and came back and we watched it in the giant like communal dorm with like 80 people. And about 5 minutes in, we were like, this is terrible. This is actually we didn't get through the first episode. We were like, this is not, it was much different when we were 5.
Yeah, you can't revisit your childhood sometimes, which is I've said this on the show before. While I have not gone back to reread the Dragonlance trilogy, because that was also a like monumental part of my childhood that I don't want to spoil by going back and reading it. But the idea of, instead of going back and trying to rewatch Thundercats and realize, the disappointment like Jim had, to just take it in a game form and just make your own Thundercats stories. That sounds like a pretty cool concept.
I mean, we know who's going to be into this game. We don't need to say it, but anyway.
One other thing too is like all of these nostalgic TV shows have been turned into movies, right? But but Thundercats, and I think it's because you can't do these characters live action and do them justice, right?
God, I hope not. After what happened with the Cats movie,
right? Exactly. So, so we'll probably never get a Thundercats live action movie. So the closest I think you can get is to play a Thundercats RPG. I'm actually talking myself into buying this thing as we're talking about.
I think if the book is really as dense as they say it is, if it is a big thick rule book, you're not going to get someone to play a campaign of this. This is a one shot kind of thing, and then you'll be mad that you spent a week learning the rules to run it. When the nostalgia quickly fades.
It says it's powered by 5e, which is different than saying it's 5e supplement perfectly. So like I don't know, maybe there's a lot on top of those bones. But it also said you can be the mutants. Like you can be Team Mumra, which is interesting. I think an evil campaign. Once you're like, oh, the Thundercats are not nearly as good as I remember them being, you can switch sides. That seems like a feature.
The morally gray Thundercats. Interesting.
Yeah, and if in any way there's some improvements, as we've seen in 5e variants, right? If there are some improvements to 5e, and maybe this is wishful thinking, right? But if there are those improvements, and it's familiar enough to 5e that it doesn't take you long to learn, and the content is flexible enough that you could use this to do your own kind of post-apocalyptic, you know, anthropomorphized, world, right? There might be some playability to this.
Yeah, I mean, uh, I don't want to crap on the game before it gets here. Who knows? Maybe it has like really cool, brand new, never seen before TTRPG mechanics that are wholly original and are exceedingly fun, which would be the first time that's happened in many, many years. But
what I
maybe
definitely
maybe this is the D&D killer we've been waiting for. And 50 years,
This
we'll
is
be
it.
like, you guys play Thundercats? People won't say you play D&D. It'll just be Thundercats.
No, what I really do expect out of this is a Wizards and Wordslingers video where Jim tells us all the things we can steal out of the Thundercats game and use in our 5e games. That's the video that I'm pretty sure is going to come out of this.
Maybe. I haven't done a Steal These Rules video in a long time. I got tired of people yelling at me in the comments. Well, just play that game. I got tired of hearing that. But
I feel like
speaking of
this
stuff,
is the entire premise of. It's a construct. Come on, guys! Like what?
Yeah.
It's like yelling at a restaurant show that they should just cook the food themselves. It's like, well, like, come on, what? Sure.
Here's something you're
Sorry.
not tired of hearing about, apparently, and that is Vox Machina, because even before the 4th series has aired, it's been renewed for a 5th and final season, which is great that it's getting a 5th season. Also, it's great that they're going to get to complete the story. It's wonderful when a storyteller can see the end, can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they're going to get to do that instead of just trying to squeeze it for as many seasons as possible until it eventually gets canceled because people are just tired of waiting for it to end. So season 4 premieres in 2026, and we also we've got 3 quick news items here about Critical Role. I'm going to go through all of them. Bing, bang, boom. That's number 1. Vox Machina season 4 and 5. Number 2, we've gotten a teaser for the Mighty Nine. And from what I understand, this is going to be a reimagined reimagined story. It's not going to follow the exact campaign the way that it did in campaign 1, which this makes more sense to me because campaign 2 of Critical Role was more. There wasn't like a one underlying story thread through the entire campaign, kind of the way there was with Vestiges of Divergence in Vox Machina. There's the beacons and then later on the Cognosis stuff, but it's sort of like there's more arcs in the Mighty Nine from what I remember. And also the third thing is that Critical Role is making a video game.
What can't they do?
What can't they do? They are teaming up with the same ad hoc studios who made a new game that's called Dispatch coming out. They collabed with them to do, or several of them are voice actors in it. And I haven't played Dispatch. From what I understand, it's like kind of like the old Telltale games. Which if you've played in the Telltale games, if it's anything like that, then it should be fantastic. Those games were incredible. Some of the best. The first season of the Walking Dead video game is some of the best storytelling I've ever seen in my whole life. So guys, there's a bunch of stuff coming out from Critical Role. What do you think?
I mean, it all sounds cool. The Vox Machina, I've loved watching the show. I personally can't watch Critical Role because I can't spend that much time watching somebody else play a role playing game. Like my hard drive crashes. That's why I love the stuff we do on Landlocked Warlocks, where it's like single episodes or like 4 or 5 episode, arcs, right? But I want to know more about these characters and the Critical Role, worlds. So I love watching these animated shows, and thoroughly enjoyed the first 3 seasons so far. So I'm excited that we're getting 2 more seasons to really tell the story. Because like Tim was saying, I think it's so important when a show actually hits that sweet spot where like it ends while it's still on top, right? It doesn't get drug out. I know Jim's a fan of Lost, but the rest of us know that Lost got drug out way too long.
Correct.
But shows like the Star Trek: The Next Generation, Black Sails, there's shows out there that really just kind of end right at the perfect time to really complete that series. And so I'm glad they get a chance to do that with our season 4, season 5 of Vox Machina.
And I got pumped watching the campaign 2 trailer. Like Mighty Nine was, I don't know, the one I watched, mostly listened to, start to finish. I've done most of campaign 1 in bits and pieces, but it is difficult to go back to those early episodes for a couple of reasons. And yeah, I, like some of us, have fell off campaign 3 fairly early into it, so I am pumped for a tighter reimagining of the Mighty Nine. And I don't know, the trailer got me excited. There's a lot. There's like they're hitting the right tones. It's good jokes, good characterization. Not as like fully drunk and unhinged. It's perfect.
Yeah, I'm also interested that they're not doing a direct adaptation for the Mighty Nine. I think they've realized kind of the challenges of that, and we saw that with season 3 of Vox Machina, where they run into a situation in the original campaign where you've got multiple characters that got resurrected, and putting all that into one season would have felt very redundant and kind of immersion breaking. So they made changes to season 3 so that the narrative was tighter and there weren't as many like actual resurrections of characters. So the story I thought worked really well compared. When you compare it from a game to a show, right? There's certain conventions that you can't copy over.
Well, I would argue that unkillable D&D characters also make the game worse. And I think one of the spoilers, but one of the bright spots of campaign 2 that makes it stand out from a lot of other Critical Role content, if not other actual plays out there, is a character dies and is dead. And it's like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that in D&D. And yeah, it is way more of a powerful in-game moment that has consequences that ripple out throughout the breadth of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, everybody, game masters, kill some characters, smoke them.
I remember when that happened, and I remember how upset people were online with Matt Mercer.
Yeah.
And he was just like, "This is how the game works,"
Yeah.
Well,
and I think I like the inclusion of the like Blaze of Glory mechanic in Daggerheart for that reason, right? Because it incentivizes you to grab that narrative moment where your character sacrifices their life for the greater good or to save the party or whatever. That Blaze of Glory mechanic, it can lead to really cool moments, and and I've stolen that mechanic and put it in my 5e games and my Shadow Dart games. Um, Ever since the original Daggerheart playtest came out, so almost 2 years now. I think I've been using that mechanic, and it leads to just really cool moments in the campaigns.
Yeah, I would say if you want a preview of death moves in Daggerheart, if you want to sell you death moves in Daggerheart, watch any of the Age of Umbra episodes. And you don't have to watch the whole thing. Just you can scrub on YouTube till you see a map and minis, and just watch the combats, because there are death moves in every single combat in this miniseries. It's an 8-episode miniseries, and it's about half combat, half like super grim dark exploration. But they're death moves, and people they get up, they run around, they freak out, they scream. It's like the most exciting stuff you've ever seen, like at a table, like people cheering, like it's like a nat 20 cheer, but it's like 5 minutes of dread anticipation while they go, "Oh crap, what do I do?" it's really intense, and I have seen that firsthand in games. Will not say anymore.
Foreshadowing.
It's intense. It's intense. I mean, and I do really like. I balked at first reading like there's three options in Daggerheart, and one of them is like I choose not to die. I don't want my character to be dead. I'm unconscious. I'm going to take a little nap. I'll be back in the next scene, whatever. And I was like, poof. But making that explicit, which is like implicit but not spelled out in fifth edition and many other games, I think actually being like, yeah, oh no, I'm going to push the I don't die button, um, makes it clear that that's the decision that you are making and that there are alternatives to that choice. Where it's like, I'm going to engage in a mechanic that obscures the fact that mathematically it's very unlikely that this is going to have any consequence whatsoever. And after doing that a couple times, I realize that the combat is in no way going to last long enough to stop someone from coming over and making a DC 10 medicine check at a minimum. So spelling it out, just like, no, thank you, not dying today. All right, cool. Yeah, that button is there, and we all know you pushed it. And there's other buttons you can push too. So I can't maybe my favorite part of Daggerheart, in a game with a lot of cool things, that's one I will carry with me, as Brad is saying he does.
Yeah, and that's a great point about comparing like the actual having a literal rule that says I can push this button to not die versus the entire game is built around, preserving characters' lives, right? Like, I think it's overall just better game design. Um, and you can tweak that rule, right? If you don't want it to be a completely easy button, you can add some other challenge, you know, to that option, right?
Yeah, because the way it works is that you choose to go unconscious, and it says in the death move and work with the DM that the situation gets worse. So when you go down, like the combat's still happening, all your friends are still fighting, and something else is going to happen. Like the GM is going to get an extra fear, or is going to introduce a new enemy, or maybe it starts a hailstorm during the combat. Something's going to happen. And also you roll a die, and if you roll under your level, then you forever lose a hope slot, which locks you off from some of the top tier abilities in the game. So it's the just go to sleep option I don't think is as wussy as I first thought it was, because it's still pretty serious, to go down.
Yeah.
I may have strawmanned it a little bit in my argument.
As
oh,
are such is the times, Ryan.
It is the internet.
I realized that. Hey, first up, hey, coming up in 61 minutes is part 3 of our 4-part Daggerheart miniseries on the Landlocked Warlocks YouTube channel. You should check it out. Speaking of Landlocked Warlocks, I was on a podcast. I was interviewed on a podcast the other day, and I was talking up LW. A guy named Daniel who does the Duality podcast for Daggerheart, which is I built a Daggerheart character based on me, and then he ran me through an encounter where I couldn't roll anything but fear, and it ended horribly. Spoilers, but you're not going to listen to it. I just a second ago realized that I skipped over the main thing that I wanted to do today. My number one favorite thing that I wanted to do. It's vague on the agenda because I didn't want these guys to know what it is. But I have a D&D horror story, but you're going to want to hear this one. I'm not going to read the title because there's too much spoilers in the title, but let me just open your ears. So I've been playing this homebrew campaign in a sort of Conan the Barbarian setting. Most of my players are barbarians. It's been a blast, but at some point, one of my players said, "It's time to get serious," during a tough encounter, and took off their shirt while screaming in rage. They proceeded to roll a nat 20 to the shock of everyone. Then, one by one, they all got real hyped and started taking off their shirts, screaming. They ended up winning the encounter. It was a funny moment, but ever since then, they have been calling themselves the Beef Brigade and refusing to play with their shirts on. It's really cool that they want to get in character, but I don't really like this. Every time I tell them not to flex or take off their shirts, they get upset. Oh, I cut off the bottom part of it. What did it say? They all start to flex and say, what's the line? Say things like, you can't handle the beef. I just think, I want to play at this table. I want to play at the beef table. I feel that DM's pain, but come on.
I've never played Shirts and Skins D&D.
No, that sounds super inappropriate for most tables.
Oh, I've read that before, and it's hilarious. It's got to be my that's got to be the most fun D&D horror story, right?
Yeah, you can't handle the beef.
You can't handle the beef. It's great, absolutely great. No notes.
I am with Twin Steel in that it does have a little ring of untruth to it for some reason. I find it sus.
Well,
but beautiful mind control moments. You will let us take our shirts off. I don't know. You know, there's some lines earlier last week. I do a lot of posting on the YouTube community, and I put up a post that was like a meme of Homer Simpson, and it was about allowing romance at tables. And I gotta say, people like I usually get a lot of likes and very few comments on those posts. That one had a ton of comments because people have opinions about romance in TTRPGs. That would be there's fertile ground there. I think we could discuss on the show.
You gotta be in the right place with the right people. Set and setting, folks. That's what it comes down to. One of my session 0 is a hot button phrase. I don't identify as a snowflake, but when I sit down in a new place with a bunch of strangers, I do feel the need to occasionally explain to them that I do not want to role play out elaborate sex scenes with these strange men I've just sat down to play a game with. And that just clears things up. And if someone has a very strong response to that, I know I probably don't want to spend the next 4 hours with them. So, yeah. But in a setting like your own house, in the basement, the dining room table, with people you know and love and have established trust and relationships with, then like, hey, yeah, cool. Go for it. I find a lot of the internet conversation fails to acknowledge that those are different things. And I don't know why.
Yeah, I think romance can be done well in a game. Like if you're playing with people who you're comfortable with, and you have a decent sense of like when to pull the curtain, right? I've played a lot of D&D over the years, and I've definitely had romances happen, and I've never had any real issue when I pull the curtain as a DM with everybody being like, okay, we get it. That's as far as we're going to go. And we all can just imagine, the rest of that scene, right? I don't understand why it's difficult for people to be able to do that. I don't
know. Crusade Games, good on you for speaking up for yourself, and also I'm glad that the DM sounded like the DM took it well. Just decided to put their attention on somebody else. But that's the kind of thing that destroys groups. So it sounds like it didn't with yours, so that's good.
Yeah, Crusade Games and I we used to play together when we lived in the same city, and we've played in games together where there were players who tried to romance NPCs, not like seduce the guard to get past them, but actually like, I want a reoccurring romantic storyline for my character with this NPC, and those things played out well.
Yeah, just depends on what your table wants and what everyone is cool with. All right, so we are really cooking. we are now to the part of the show that we call the catch up, which where first we tell you to go subscribe to the Landlocked Warlocks because it's a good YouTube channel. They post good stuff there that they as us. There's this show, actual plays, and other stuff that appears there. We, more in the future, maybe. If they invent more hours in the day, we'll see about it. Although I could probably fill up those hours with other stuff if they do add more hours in the day. It's like when they expand the highways and there's just more people driving the highways. That's how what my brain would work with hours in the day. But anyway, Ryan, what you got going on?
I hate you guys. I don't know. We kind of brushed over that. But this is potentially my last episode with the Landlocked Warlocks. I'm not going to be here next week. Or maybe ever again. I don't know. This is my heel turn era. Hulk Hogan dying kind of stepped on that whole narrative, but here we are. Had a really cool talk with Zarek, the one of the creators of Indomitables, a super TTRPG, superhero TTRPG that is dope, and you should definitely check out, one, our conversation, and two, that game, because it takes all of the things I was just complaining about in 5e and leans into them and acknowledges that they're the point. And very cool character creation and customizing powers and such. We do a little character creation and learned a lot about his game in the process. So yeah, that was a good one, and actually came out twice because I screwed up the cut the first time, and I've been traveling, so it makes it very hard to edit and render videos when you're not seated at this desk. So that's me.
Brad, what you got going on?
We've currently been playing Shadowdark and playing in pulp mode. Are you guys familiar with pulp mode at all?
It's ringing. I've read about it, but it's been a long time. Tell me. Yeah.
So Shadowdark has the luck token thing, right? Which is like their version of inspiration. With pulp mode, you start with more luck tokens at the beginning of the game, and you can use your luck tokens for more things, like to be able to. So instead of just like re-roll the die, you can make the game master re-roll a die. You can take an extra action during your turn. You can use your luck token to help another character at the table. So there's multiple options on how you spend your luck tokens, and it does make Shadowdark a little less deadly, right? But it has created some really cool moments. Like the game we just played last night, one of the players had this really cool stunt they wanted to do. They had magic boots, and they leaped towards the goblin that was riding on a warg, and they wanted to shoot the goblin with their crossbow and kill the goblin, have them fall off, and then land on the warg in the saddle that the goblin was sitting on. And they they made their first roll, but they only rolled a 2 on their damage die. So they spent a luck token to re-roll their damage die and got 5, which was enough to kill the goblin, and then they were able to make their other rolls and make that whole crazy scene happen. So it leads to some pretty cinematic moments without needing all of the extra stuff that 5e has, right? You don't need multi-attack, you don't need bonus actions, you don't need all that extra stuff. This one simple, pulp mode luck token mechanic or set of mechanics makes the game more action-packed and more cinematic without the need for all the extraneous rules that come with like 5th edition or Pathfinder and that sort of stuff. It's been really fun.
And me, what do I got going on? Well, I'm sitting here doing the show. I don't know if I'm gonna have video this Sunday or not. It kind of depends on some things tomorrow. I'm hopefully gonna do a video about Age of Umbra, but I haven't watched the final episode yet. So there's a lot of ifs going on there. So we're telling Professor DM bringing a Deathbringer team with Kelsey Shadowrunner expansion.
Is that a hypothetical or is that happening?
I don't know about this.
Yeah, I like it on the face of it.
Oh, I think I did hear that Professor DM was publishing a supplement or a new edition of Deathbringer that was compatible with Shadowdark.
Gotcha. I know he's got the new Deathbringer Kickstarter that's started soon, or if not already started. And yes, Roll for Combat is publishing a Shadow Dark expansion. They've got a Kickstarter going on for that as well. But yeah, so I don't know any details about how compatible the new Deathbringer is with Shadow Dark, but if it is, that's a pretty brilliant move on Professor DM's part. One, because he and Kelsey are friends, and he's friends with Glicker and all that sort of stuff. But also because that detaches Deathbringer from 5th edition, right? Deathbringer was basically a streamlined version of 5e, which Shadow Dark also is. So publishing the new Deathbringer, if he is doing this, is pretty smart. Publishing the new Deathbringer game under the Shadow Dark license would actually make a lot of sense, right? Instead of publishing it under 5e's Creative Commons or 5e's OGL, right? Because Professor's whole brand is getting away from WotC. So, connecting his game to Shadow Dark instead of 5e, it's on brand. He's collaborating with people that he already enjoys working with. Yeah, that all makes sense to me. So now nice. I have to go. Now I have to go look that up.
Yeah, I've heard about Deathbringer many, many times and never actually played it or looked into it further than just Professor DM's videos. So I think we're ready to move on. Hey, you watching, don't forget, in about 38 minutes, part 3 of our 4-part Daggerheart miniseries is premiering on the Landlocked Warlocks YouTube channel. I'll be there. I gotta do another thing. I'll be doing 2 things while I'm watching the video, but I will be there in chat, occasionally half paying attention. So
I'm gonna be driving, so I'll definitely be in chat. Ask me questions.
Last time, Ryan had to miss because of Picklesburg.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, Picklesburg. If you don't know, I mean, I'm in Pittsburgh. If you don't know that, I try to keep OPSEC pretty tight up in here, but Pittsburgh's a big place. You can't find me. Home of Heinz. I'm in the pickle capital of the world. Not only are there a ton of nerds in Pittsburgh, you don't know how cool this is. You know what? I'm ruining it. I'm not supposed to tell people how cool Pittsburgh is because I want them to stay away. But yeah, if you're ever in town for Picklesburg, go there because we shut down a couple bridges. We got more bridges than Venice because we're dope. And yeah, I had a pickled grilled cheese. I had a pickled beer. I had a pickled slice of pizza, which took 45 minutes to get and was totally worth it. Yeah, it's an amazing time. We know how to party. Also how to make cool pickle confectionery things. The pierogies, regular pierogies are better. But yeah, Picklesburg. Woo!
There you go. I live in Colorado. All we got here are mountains. So moving on to our roundtable discussion. How to make your campaign setting unique. This was something brought up by Brad a couple hours ago, and I've been thinking on it. And I would like to hear what the two of you have to say on how to make your campaign setting unique. What do you think, Brad?
Real quick, I just pulled it up and was trying to find more details on the collab between Professor DM's Deathbringer and Shadow Dark, and that does seem to be the case. I'm not finding a lot of details on that, but I'm definitely excited to learn more, and maybe that should be a topic on our show next week. So yeah, making settings unique. It's something that I've always struggled with because it seems if you're playing regular D&D, especially if you like 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition, there's so much kitchen sink fantasy built into the game. There's so many races, species, ancestries, whatever you want to call them, that you kind of feel obligated to include. And I find it hard if you want to include everything that is in D&D in your campaign setting. It's hard to not end up with a generic fantasy setting. So I think there's some challenge there to try to, when you're trying to create a unique setting, do you trim the fat, right? Do you change the game, or do you like, I don't like hobbits, so we're not doing halflings, right? Or dragonborn aren't a thing in my world, so you can kind of trim the fat, or you can add more to it. And if you add more to it, does that mean you add more mechanics, right? You're playing D&D or Pathfinder, you already got a lot of mechanics to work with. Now I'm currently building up my home campaign setting for Shadowdark, and that's what's been on my mind is, and it seems like it's going to be an easier task to build a home setting for Shadowdark than my previous experiences building homebrew settings for third edition and fifth edition.
Yeah, I think the editorial process is huge and rarely spoken about, and there's a lot of hats on hats on hats going on in this industry, where it's
Right.
like, by the time if you got 80 species, you have you have zero species, right? It just all amalgamates into to nothing. I don't have the bandwidth as a game master to distinguish what makes your tribal, barbaric, orc guy and giant guy and lizard folk guy different from the monsters that also fit that archetype and this other thing over here that's happening that's pivotal to my plot for some reason. So yeah, I think limitations are deeply powerful. That's why I like to make a lot of stuff that's like how much narrative content can I fit into my one or two lines of text. Um, and it's funny. I've been thinking about helping other people do this in the last couple weeks, which has been a mixed bag. But I see a lot of folks on both sides of the game master screen go reaching for like the biggest, most impactful thing they can think of, and it's like in this world, there's two moons. No, the moon's exploded, and it's cool for a moment, and then like has no real impact on the ground in gameplay. So like much smaller, closer to home, just like good details are gonna make things go a lot further. This NPC has whatever, has a peg leg. That peg leg is made out of bone. Ah, cool. What kind of bone? Where'd he get it? What happened to the like before he had a bone leg? Is he just slowly becoming a skeleton? Is that a metaphor for the creeping uncertainty of mortality? you, the down to earth stuff is going to get you way more impact than really swinging for the fences each time, in my humble opinion. Like first episode of the Daggerheart campaign, it became clear immediately to us because I mean we're looking for detail to a degree too. But the first NPC that we spoke to was like, "Happy roads." Was that the phrase?
Easy roads.
Easy roads. And I was like, oh, damn, that is a thing that happens in this small town here. And I am now so much deeper down. And there was a lot of cool, like, the city hall was made out of a titanic breastplate that was suffused with magic. And that was pretty dope. But Easy Roads was like, oh, that's a thing that my character can interact with right now. It's not a mystery that's going to take a campaign to solve. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, here is the little bit of flavor that makes this feel like a home cooked meal. And it's not the gold foil on top that makes it pretend to be from $1,000 restaurant. It's like, oh, this is good, genuine home cooking right here.
Go ahead, Brad.
So just my thoughts on what you can do. These are things I've done in the past. One is to do like what Ryan just described and add nuance, right? Like vernacular for different regions. Or like, in Jem's world, there's these like bones and weapons and armor of these dead titans that kind of litter the world. That adds a unique flavor to Jim's setting, right? Doing things like that. And I don't know how much you do mechanically with that, Jim, in your homebrew world. There are, like, I know in your homebrew world there's like magic connected to those, those fragments of the Titans that are scattered across your world. Do you do a lot mechanically with that?
Sort of. I mean, like a lot of things, I've done a little bit, and if the story goes in that direction, I would do more.
The Another thing you can do, but I just think that's a cool idea, right? Because it like just it's like a seasoning that is all over the world, right? Are these remnants of these Titans, um, but it doesn't have to have a lot of mechanical weight to it. Like I was saying, you don't have to add a bunch to your game to do that. The other thing you do is like pick one aspect of the game, especially an aspect of the game that you might not be a fan of. Like we were just talking earlier in the show, Ryan was talking about like resurrection in a game kind of waters down some of the narrative. In one of my homebrew worlds, the world was covered with what was called the shroud, and it was a layer of shadow kind of above the atmosphere of the planet. And what that shroud did is it prevented um, it was a spiritual shadow, so it didn't like block out the sun or anything. But this like spiritual shadow prevented souls from leaving the plane, right? Your soul couldn't leave the material plane and go to the afterlife. So that did away with the resurrection. But what I did story wise, narrative, is once the player characters were a high enough level where they would start to get access to resurrection type magic, they learned that there were ways to travel into the shroud. So if they so chose to try to resurrect the character, like it became part of the game. They had to travel into the shroud, this realm of shadow, and find the spirit of the person they wanted to resurrect, and literally come back with that spirit. So that one thing added, a decent amount of uniqueness to my homebrew world, um, with only really changing like a few mechanical aspects.
Yeah. So let me soapbox here for a minute, as I was thinking while you two were talking, in that in fiction and in games, a genre is just a bundle of tropes. Um, and that's all it is. What makes science fiction? Well, it's certain tropes. It's the trope of technology. It's what the difference between a mystery and a thriller is. If you have a dead body and you find out who killed him at the end, it's a mystery. If you find out who killed him at the beginning, it's a thriller. Like they're tropes, and they're little knobs you can twist to change from one trope to another. I used to be in a writer's critique group many years ago with this lawyer who was a brilliant writer. His books were he wrote these brilliant legal novels, but he never published them because he would always include aliens in his book. And one of them, and the aliens would have like nothing to do with the story. It's just like aliens would show up. And one of his novels was a brilliant novel, and he had an agent and an editor, both interested. But they told him he had to take it. There's a scene at the very end of the book. There's the alien scene. The aliens come down at the very end and then interact with the protagonist. And they said, "We'll buy your book if you take this out," because that was a trope that broke the legal thriller trope. An alien breaks legal thriller. If you have a romance novel, but they don't get together at the end, that breaks your happy ever after trope. So in TTRPGs, it's the same thing. You have you have tropes of guys in armor. You have tropes of wizards. And then in combat, if somebody shows up with an AR-15, you've broken, that's a breaking trope. And maybe breaking tropes is how you make your campaign unique. As long as it's not so breaking that it turns people off. I think my favorite, I was just thinking about this the other day. My ideal campaign, my ideal fantasy campaign setting is probably based on The Princess Bride. Because it's silly, but it's also serious. There are stakes in The Princess Bride. There are dangerous things that happen. People get hurt. People can die. There's excitement. There's action. There's anachronisms, like Billy Crystal talking about the mutton, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. There's little trope breaking things like that in The Princess Bride that I love, and I love them there. That's like whenever I DM a game, I always do anachronisms. You're gonna talk to the merchant, and the merchant's gonna say something about his stock portfolio. Like, that's just how I run games. I can't not do that. Like, anachronisms are always funny to me. So maybe that's like my genre breaking unique thing that I feel like makes my games unique, is a way that I bend the trope. And I don't know. I'll step down from my soapbox now. That's my lecture on tropes. Tropes are like a bundle. Genre is like a bundle of trope sticks. It's not a genre. Is not a monolith. It's not a stone. It's a bundle of things that work together.
That makes sense, because like you take the fantasy genre, right, and you tug on a few tropes, pull some out, add some, then you don't have to do much to go from, classic fantasy to science fantasy, right? Added some laser swords, you know, call magic the force, and instead of teleportation portals, you have spaceships, right? And so you can go from, Greyhawk to Star Wars, really only pulling a few levers. And maybe that's not the best example. You can also go from fantasy to post-apocalyptic, like Thundar the Barbarian style, right? That's not too big of a stretch to go from fantasy to post-apocalyptic. In fact, there are actually like some very, like Michael Moorcock stuff. Like, he's got some, a little bit of sci-fi splashed in with his fantasy, right?
I don't know what the epilogue is to that story. I don't remember the guy's name. This was more than 10 years ago. It was a little critique group that used to meet at the public library in Boulder. And I don't know. I hope he did. I hope he saw reason, because it's a dumb thing to stick to your guns about. It's just a dumb thing to stick to your guns about. Just take out the alien scene and get your novel published, and write a whole other alien book under a pen name. That's how everybody does it.
And that band was John Grisham. As the guy who was just yelling about limitations sparking creativity, I think the best part about rules is understanding them well enough to break them. And I think a lot of people rush that process. And like, one, I have come to learn and love Jim's ability to insert completely inappropriate genre bending elements to his world building and his PCs and whatever else. And just like, yeah, I'm a janitor at this magical college, and I am working on my freestyle EP right now. But my MC's a jerk. Like, incredible. I love a good. It's never the first scene or the first month stretch arc of a campaign, but like, when appropriate, the NPC who is metagaming, the person who's breaking the fourth wall and like knows entirely too much about the characters, and maybe there's some sort of like divinatory wizard, or maybe it's just a Mary Sue character for the game master, and I'm not even going to tell you which it is at any given point. I love that, where it's just like, wow, you're gonna trust. I did it last night. The first time someone's nice to you, you're going along with this guy. The Good Alliance people in the last town, you burned down their house and stole their money, and now this guy who's building a Bride of Frankenstein, he's your guy. Okay, cool. All right. seems weird, guys. You can break the rules when you know them and have established them. If you open by doing that, if you open with the punchline, the joke doesn't hit the same way. You gotta do the setup first. You have to establish a ground, and then, if you're very clever and nuanced, you can tweak the tropes and the genre in a way that's like, oh, this dungeon we were exploring in the mountains has actually been an alien spaceship the whole time. It's just we didn't know that, and now we do, and we're actually in a different genre than we thought. That's cool. Do that, or just run that.
Yeah, I played in a game where like all the dungeons were mostly made out of metal, and there was a lot of like gears and piping, and it would at first kind of seemed like old broken steampunk stuff. And throughout the course of the campaign, we realized that this was actually a post-apocalyptic setting. And then once we started figuring that out, yeah, the DM broke out the local world map, and it was like a fantasy version of the state of North Carolina. Um, and it was so we were playing in our own region, right? But we were playing it in this post apocalyptic setting that was so post apocalyptic it played like fantasy until you dug deep enough into the ruins.
Steampunk is a great example of how new genres are born, where you take a certain number of tropes from one thing and a certain number of tropes from another thing and smush them together. And if they cohabitate, then it does really well. Like flintlock fantasy is it, or what in TTRPGs, Weird West is what they call it in tabletop games. But flintlock fantasy is westerns and magic smushed together, and then you have gunslingers casting spells on their 6 shooters, and that works because those are two things that people like. Now there has to be, that doesn't mean that, now the way the companies think is that everyone who likes fantasy plus everyone who likes westerns will like all of these things, but that's not how it works. It's only people who like both things like that thing. That's how it works. But
Right.
that's how genres are born. That's how that, there's, I don't think there are new tropes. there are a certain number of tropes that exist. There are a finite number of them out there, and like the 12 music notes, there's a finite number of combinations. They have not all been discovered. Post-apocalyptic flintlock fantasy romance is probably a genre that doesn't exist, but you can tell based on the words that I said. It's like a German word where you just smush a bunch of things together. It's just a bunch of different genres, and you already know which tropes from those genres are going to get smushed together, right? Just when I just say the words. I don't even remember what the original topic was now. I feel like we've gone on a long walk.
Well, I mean, we're talking about how to make your fantasy world unique, right? And and so I think there's a lot of ways to do it. I think the best advice I can give is don't feel too much pressure to go way unique, right? A lot of times people struggle with like, I need to build this very unique world so it really stands out as my own, and that's almost a fool's errand. It's a very big task, and it's hard to stick that landing. I think making a few simple but impactful choices to make your homebrew setting unique goes a long way. And I think that's probably the best advice I could give on the topic.
To kind of build off of that, what Jim said earlier in answer to Brad's question, I think is a great demonstration of how to do this. Where Brad was like, okay, there are these Titan pieces shot through with Sylvain. There's this magical source. Is that like pivotal to your world building? And Jim's answer is like, nope. Well, no one's ever really like done it yet. So sure, if the players pursue that course of action, if that becomes relevant to the story, then I'm going to develop it more. And I'm sure there's ideas there about what that looks like. But what there isn't is a binder full of details about something the players are going to never interact with that inevitably comes at the cost of the game they're going to play. And if you like writing binders of stuff, cool. No hate. I got them. We can go talk about it in the restaurant where Jim and his lawyer friend hang out. But it's not going to help you, and it may actually hurt you when it comes time to create an interesting world for your players to explore. So what they show interest in is the stuff you lean into more. And that little detail could be, the bait on the hook to get them involved. But until they're on the line, you don't want to invest all this energy into stuff that they're not going to the moon. They're not going to the moon. So don't invest all of your energy and then have a very boring starter town because that's less exciting to you. Like make the starting town interesting by a couple little details, and that's going to get you there much faster.
They're not going to meet your elves on the moon until they're 14th level, so don't start there.
Sandal and Sorcery. This is like Sandal's like Roman era. I've heard this phrase before, but I can't remember what Sandal and Sorcery is.
Just being like Conan, like it's kind of like
oh
low tech, low magic, but like
okay.
Magic kills people, including the user occasionally. That's my interpretation.
Mage Powder. Hearing some good genre mashup words in the chat. Mage Powder. I like Gaslamp Fantasy too. That's a good one. That's like Jack the Ripper era, but
right.
Like Victorian Regency era with fantasy. Gaslamp Fantasy. That's also, there's some good books out there in that genre.
Like the Penny Dreadful TV show.
Yeah, that would be Gaslamp Fantasy.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that show, and that genre was really fun to explore.
Yes. Do we want to? Anybody else got thoughts on making your campaign setting unique?
I feel like
you could take a genre or a mashup like that and secretly be implementing it and not telling your players, right? Like, I outed myself from running Curse of Strahd, very horror Edwardian, but like, you could pull on, like, this is this character walks out of a spaghetti western, but I'm doing a vampire voice. I'm like, what is that? That's an original concept, even though I'm completely just recycling content that exists without using much imagination. And 50% of the time it's going to land, even more so if I'm doing it poorly, because now it's not as recognizable, be it the accent or the references. Now it's an original thing.
Yeah, I did a very detailed deep dive video on how to do that. I think that I've changed the title as something like your 1980s D&D adventure or something, but I did a very it's one of my longest videos where I do a 10-minute deep dive into the plot of the 1980s movie Dream a Little Dream with Corey Haim and Corey Feldman. It's not a good movie, but it's one of my favorite movies. It's top 10 for me, and I know it's a bad movie. I'm not gonna I won't argue that. It's like 8% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's one of my absolute favorite movies. And so I break down the entire plot in the first half of the video, and then the second half I explain how you turn that exact plot into a mystery arc of a campaign. And the point is that Dream Little Dreams, you don't have to do a Dream Little Dream campaign. The point is you can take anything and anything that you love and turn those markers into, turn those NPCs and plot points into a story, into a campaign or a one shot or whatever you want. And I mean, that's what's fun for me is like, he doesn't know he's the Jason Robards character.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie because I'm with you, Jim. I know it's a bad movie, but I loved it as a,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've done that with one of the newer versions of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. It's one of the few Scooby-Doos where there's an ongoing narrative through the show. So it's not, there's still all those Scooby-Doo-ish stuff, right? Every episode. But there's actually an underlying narrative that runs like through the seasons of the show. And there's a lot of good ideas in that cartoon to mine. I watched that show when it first came out with one of my kids who was really into it. And so we watched it together, kind of bonding moment for the two of us. And while we were watching it, I was also running D&D, so I was just mining this kids show for ideas for my D&D campaign.
I had a great crossover idea. Somebody write this down. A Daggerheart Beast Feast mini campaign, like their Delicious and Dungeon campaign, with set in the Bluey world. So Beast Feast with Bluey characters. So they can't be killing goblins. It's got to be, I don't know, something. But Bluey
So Bluey's
set in the world of Bluey.
But Bluey's family are the heroes, not the food. Right? Okay, cool. I'm in.
You'll get pre-gens for Scout, for Bluey, for all of them. Double crit fail. Yeah. We're talking about our next Landlocked Warlocks product. We're going to be collaborating with the creators of Bluey to make a Daggerheart campaign frame.
I kind of feel like this one, it's all been weird time, but those are my favorite episodes. So I think what it comes down to is just steal stuff. And if you can find some weird, obscure thing to steal, no one will know you're stealing.
Right.
Yeah, and what Brad was saying before about you don't have to be the most unique in the world. It's fine to meet in a tavern for new players. Experienced players don't want to meet in a tavern, but if they're brand new players, you don't have to throw them into combat to make it exciting. They don't know what they're doing. It's fine. Have them sit down at a tavern where no one is trying to shoot them with an arrow, so they can introduce their characters and order something. Like, I think that's a fantastic thing for a brand new player to do, is just put a server in front of them and say, what would you like to drink? And they say, I want a beer. Boom, you just role played, buddy. You did it.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Did you have more on that thought before I take us?
No, go ahead.
Like I said, I think that's a great point. Another thing I've done with experienced players is you go ahead and do all the cliche tavern stuff to introduce the characters, and then something literally happens to the entire tavern. I had a tavern that was built on the top of a waterfall, and you do all the basic stuff, right? They order their food, they role play a little bit, they get to know each other, and then these two mages start a battle in the tavern, and next thing you know, the tavern is falling over the edge of the waterfall and crashing down into the river, and now we're into an elaborate like survival scene, right?
There you go.
So you can always start in a tavern and then just add something weird that makes that tavern unique.
Just a little twist on a recognizable trope, because here's another I got to get back on my soapbox for a second. People say they want something different. People say they want something original and different and unique, and that's not true. That's what people think they want. What people want is a recognizable trope altered just a little bit in a way that they haven't seen too many times before.
Right, because the recognizable trope keeps them in their comfort zone, right? So they're not stretching too hard, but that little twist that you add makes it feel different, right?
Like, have you ever watched the Cinema Sins? It's a YouTube channel where they take a movie trailer and they list all the sins, which is just a list of tropes to be like, another chosen one. Like, that's why people like this stuff, is because of those tropes. Like, listing the tropes aren't sins. If you read a book or played a game or saw a movie that had nothing recognizable in it, you would hate it. And whenever stuff like that happens, people hate it, even though they think that's what they want. Anyway, back down off my soapbox.
Go read Joseph Campbell.
300 Marvel movies, yeah.
Or Carl Jung.
Yeah.
It's in you already. You're not getting away from it. Archetypes are real.
Yes, there's 300 Marvel movies, and the really good ones do something a little bit different. They just do something just a little bit different than the other ones, and that's what makes them really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the first Black Panther movie did the villain really well, right? But otherwise, it hits all the beats of all the other Marvel movies, right?
Yeah.
And you could go down the list of the good ones and pick out the one thing that they did a little bit different.
Yeah.
To your point, real quick, Jim, about like, if something is totally unique, I'm currently reading the graphic novel called Tongues, and I'm struggling to get through it because it is so weird and so different. I really want to get through it because the artwork in it is bizarrely beautiful, and I'm really hoping they stick the landing at the end, because it's a thick one, and if it ends badly, I'm going to be mad, because it's a hard read because it's so weird. There's nothing in it that's really recognizable, and every chapter I'm like, where the hell are we now? So I hope they tie a bow on this thing, or I'm going to be ticked at the person who recommended it.
Well, Tongues, it sounds gross. Moving on, we've got one more thing to get to, and then we want to have everyone a little break, because in 15 minutes, part 3 of our 4-part Daggerheart miniseries is airing on the Landlocked Warlocks YouTube channel. But so coming up, The Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerun and Forgotten Realms Adventures in Faerun. They have just shown the covers to these, and this one you see, I don't know who this is, but you've got Karlak, you've got Minsk and Boo, and I don't know who this is, maybe Jarlaxle Benray from, I don't know who that is.
I'm pretty sure it's Jarlaxle.
Yeah, that's who it is.
That's the only non-Drizzt drow I know, and that ain't Drizzt. And then here's the other one. This is from the PHB art, I think, isn't it? Or maybe this art just looks really recognizable. But you can see they have they're using that different font that they used on the Dragon Anthology book. But I just want to say that I think putting Karlak and Minsk and Boo, Minsk and Boo is an old character, but Karlak is as far as I know, brand new character from Baldur's Gate 3, and this is what they should do instead of Presto and Venger and Dungeon Master. You know, they should have current mascots instead of 40-year-old mascots from a problematic cartoon that everyone knows about, but no one under the age of 30 has seen. And you wouldn't like it if you did, Gen Z. If you watched it, you would find it problematic and you would not enjoy it. But Baldur's Gate 3 is huge. And WotC owns it, so they should be using it. So they should have Shadowheart and Karlak and Asterion and Will and Gale and Mizora and all over everything Dungeons and Dragons for the next 30 years, and forget about trying to make the original cartoon cast happen again.
Mm-hmm. I agree. My only criticism of these covers is that it's just the very modern digital art that's like it's a little too slick for me. It lacks, I don't know, like it lacks a certain amount of gravitas because it's the digital, a lot like digital art that's not done really well for me kind of breaks immersion, because it's just if these images just feel too clean and crisp. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys at all.
No, I'm with you. I don't really have the vocabulary to like. I'm not the art critic, but this feels like a video game that I don't want to play, or like, and maybe it's BG3, but like it feels like a phone game. This feels like an advertisement for a phone game. That is just my subjective experience of this. Is like, and I'm kind of already like prepared to skip these Forgotten Realms books. Been there, done that, know it well. Don't need subclass options. Don't need, I don't know, a paragraph on a city my players are never going to visit. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not excited about this. These.
Yeah, I have Sword Coast Adventures Guide, and I would be very impressed if it's more than 25% new content compared to Sword Coast Adventures Guide, because the Sword Coast Adventures Guide was already just material from Storm King's Thunder. Those books were basically almost if you had Storm King's Thunder, you didn't need Sword Coast Adventures Guide because it was all the same stuff. And so I'm just kind of curious to do a side by side comparison to see how much they lifted directly. But this stuff like this makes me not want to run adventures in Faerun. Makes me not want to run Sword Coast because I don't like the idea of a player knowing more about the campaign world than I do. Because I have this amazing ability as a dungeon master to make crap up in the blank spots. If I don't know it, I'll just make it up, and then that's true. But if a player knows something that I don't know, then I can't just make it up. Or if I do, then they're going to feel a little disappointed because they're going to be like, oh, but I read in that book, it said this, and I paid $30 for that book.
Right. So yeah, if you assume the blank spot exists for you to put your own content in, and then the player is well versed in the world, and they're like, wait a second, that's not a blank spot. That doesn't fit here, right?
No, actually, the spell plague happened in 1492 DR. Be like, oh, okay, Jeremy, thanks. Yeah, okay, Jeremy, you're right.
Oh, that Jeremy guy.
That guy. All right, so Go ahead.
Hey, are we going to get tweaked about Daggerheart rules now? Is that something that we're afraid of? Slash, I'm not going to say looking forward to, ironically, even because it hurts my soul. Is he going to be tweeting Daggerheart rule fixes next? Is that coming?
Crawford?
Yeah.
I see. Is Crawford taking over the terminally online answering question for pet ants?
but in a way that makes me upset at my table. Well, it says here. He said here. He answered it both ways in the same 300 characters. That's not canon. Get out of here.
I hope not, because I don't want Daggerheart to become that kind of game. I see people fighting about quibbling over rules on Reddit, and I'm like, oh, let's not do this. Yeah. Let's not turn Daggerheart into that, where we have these extremely complicated branching pathways of this is how these people online say you have to play it and interpret it this way. Don't do that. It's not 5e. Let's not make it another 5e by over-rulifying it.
I think there's just a subset of players that's their thing. They want to be rules lawyers. They want to pick the process apart and really understand. Like, there's a need to know everything, and I feel like that subset of players was created at the end of second edition and going into third edition, and we've never been able to break those people free from that, like, rules lawyer bondage.
I feel like the cure for that is running the game for any length of time, though, because you very quickly see through the matrix of, like, this balance that you're trying to, I mean, honestly, win is purely illusory. Like, you are eating a steak in the matrix. That's great if you enjoy that. But I got these pills over here, buddy, and this is all fake. The math don't math here.
I want to be somebody important, like an actor. I always love that line in The Matrix. I don't remember nothing. I want to be somebody important, like an actor. Anyway,
and see that's genre-breaking meta commentary. That is fantastic. Originality. Let's go.
All right, so we got to go because we all needed to take a quick bathroom break and get a beverage before part 3 of Daggerheart on the Landlocked Warlocks YouTube channel, coming up in about 6 minutes. You don't want to miss this one. It's the second half. It's the back half. Things are moving faster. Things are getting exciting. And so I think with that, it's about time to say goodbye. And go watch our Daggerheart mini stream. It's good. And we'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone.